Summer of 2017 may have been the worst summer season in anime history, only producing one well-regarded show and a bunch of fun but easily forgettable cannon fodder. Obviously, you can't get much better than summer last year with Re:Zero, Mob Psycho, Battery, Orange, Taboo Tattoo, and Kono Bijutsubu all coming out in the same season, but shit, you can do better than Boku no Hero, a show called NTR, and The fucking Reflection. At least 2015 had Roku no Yusha, Durarara X210, Gatchaman Crowd's Insight, and the first half of Charlotte. Yeah, it's been a while since you've heard of that show, huh? And since my summer was so busy because I have live, I didn't actually finish a single show. I was enjoying Kakegurui, but it just kind of went over my head as the weeks progressed. I also couldn't stand people making videos on it. Additionally, I'm on the last episode of Koi to Uso and Gamers, but forgot about both shows and just never finished them. There was, however, an additional show on that list just before this week, but I finally got around to finishing it, and that show is... I haven't practiced this, so we're gonna do this in one shot. You-Jitsu Ryoku Shijo Shuki no Kyoshitsu A. Or in English, Classroom of the Elite. Let's talk about it.
次はそこの君。
俺？仕方ない。ここは少し気張って自己紹介することにしよう。学校生活のために。綾小路清隆です。よろしくお願いします。得意なことは特にありませんが、仲良くなれるよう頑張ります。失敗した。
I'm not going to give you a plot summary like every other reviewer on this fucking site does, since, you know, you have eyes and can read, so I'll just put the mouse synopsis in the description. Take a minute to read it and come back. The only thing I'll add to that synopsis is that the first episode reveals that the Academy is a meritocracy, meaning students move up in rank and receive monthly salaries based on their merits and accomplishments. That's all you need to know for context, so let's get into the show. You're probably asking yourself, why the hell did I even bother to watch this show? And I'll be honest, I heard it was Oregairu light, you know, like the Pepsi Zero of realistic and masterful school slice of life shows, but I was lied to. Classroom of the Elite is not Oregairu, and it wasn't trying to be Oregairu in the first place. Hikigaya Hachiman, the protagonist of Oregairu, is a loner with severe insecurity issues and feelings of self-loathing. Despite his ability to solve issues and get whatever he wants, he's a human and his flaws are commented on throughout the show. Ayanokouji, Classroom of the Elite's protagonist, has no flaws, despite his average test grades that we know are doctored by himself due to implication from the show, so he doesn't direct attention to himself. Now that I think about it, I don't know if I should be calling a 50 out of 100 on any test average. That's failing, but you get the point. Furthermore, Oregairu is not only about its conflicts, but what the implication of the conflicts are on each of its characters. Every event in Oregairu develops or reveals something about the main trio. Everything the characters do have some consequences. While Hikigaya is indeed incredibly smart and skilled at manipulating situations, he is always humane in his methods, and said methods have consequences, negative and positive, that affect him and the service club. Hachiman sacrifices himself for the sake of an artificial friendship of some alien group, and 7 episodes later, that decision still affects the characters of the story. Every single one of them. Oregairu is extremely philosophical, psychological, and analytical. Classroom of the Elite couldn't be any more different, as the show is all about the physical battles, as evidenced by its refusal to address the implications of its conflicts even the immediate episode after they're resolved. The methods used to create and resolve conflicts are all extremely inhumane and manipulative, and unlike Oregairu, which comments on such a thing, Classroom proceeds on as if this is simply to be expected. Now, here's the thing. That's actually fine. I don't mind it being the antithesis of Oregairu because the show made no hints that it was aiming to do the same thing aside from the insanely pretentious and irrelevant quotes that appear at the beginning of each episode. The story is not supposed to be thought-provoking, but to be interpreted at a surface level, which is okay. However, it also means the conflicts themselves have to be interesting or have some sort of twist, else the show becomes stale and lacks tension. This is where many of the problems with Classroom of the Elite stem from. Sure, Class D is often in a disadvantageous state, but this pressure is never felt with Ayanokouji, the main character. If the protagonist is never worried about a situation, why should I be? If the mastermind behind Class D's rise to power cares so little about battery to his classmates, pneumonia, and living in poverty for the rest of his life, why should I? Well, I shouldn't. He obviously has something planned, and his actions have never resulted in any negative consequences for his peers, so there's no reason to be worried about these characters despite the immediate consequences of each situation. They have no long-term impact, and the main character isn't worried, thus there's no tension, and the show becomes stale. Despite all that, I did finish the show, so there has to be something that kept me interested, right? Well, of course. There were actually two reasons I kept watching the show every single week. Absurdity. The show is absurd, so almost every conflict evolved to something far too grand, but the immediate consequences of everything were unpredictable at the very least. It's the same reason you push through watching Mirai Nikki despite knowing it isn't going to get any better. It gets dumber, and that's really entertaining. Intrigue. As stated earlier, there are so many interesting plot points that are introduced that have immense potential to evolve into something special. Kushida's personality in particular was extremely intriguing, as despite her generally preppy moe personality, she's actually your typical raging, sociopathic, schizophrenic rapist accusator that threatens the show and the main character's integrity as early as episode 2. Those types of girls are nothing new. I see them all the time around where I live. Want me to dox them? Here's the first one. The name's Casey!
You trying to have sex with me, Steven?
Classroom of the Elite introduces what could be an elite antagonist. See what I did there? And possible rival to Ayanokouji, which would completely rid the show of its issues stated earlier. If Kushida had control over the class, she'd prompt a back and forth struggle with Ayanokouji, and the show would legitimately be unpredictable, as it'd be a battle between two elite sociopaths manipulating situations for long-term effects. This would result in more tension. Additionally, Ayanokouji's last-minute revelation that he's a sociopath wouldn't be so appalling if the show was simply commenting on his nature and actions via the counteractions of a foil. But this simply isn't the case. Instead, only unsuccessful attempts from Kushida attempting to manipulate Ayanokouji to gain a means up the class ladder are seen, which further solidify that Ayanokouji is unstoppable. But that's only the first plot point that vanishes. The story never elaborates on Ayanokouji's experience in Seraph of the the Stanford prison the generic white room of dying orphans, despite it being a white room with dying orphans. All we get is Ayanokouji staring at his little suffocating fellow orphan, suffering as he contemplates how to relieve his boredom. Aw, poor Ayanokouji-kun.
I wonder how warm his corpse will be after tomorrow. He was kind of cute. Maybe if I stare at him for long enough, he'll stop dying.
Boku no Hero is the greatest shout of all time.
Nope.
There are many more conflicts that are never addressed, however, I think you get my point. These conflicts were all simply introduced to keep the populace watching, and after the show finished airing, the same conflicts were a motivation to get viewers to read the light novel. Now, while I'm definitely going to give the light novel a shot when the translation catches up in 4,000 years, I'm still going to accuse the show of being a poor adaptation for blueballing me like 6 times, because apparently a dying black guy is as funny as dying orphans in a white room. Most good light novel adaptations like Roku no Yusha and ReZero cut out information that wouldn't be relevant to the material adapted, which prevents the existence of unexplored plotlines. While I understand that Classroom of the Elite is not as entertaining or nearly as good a series as either of the aforementioned titles, and needs to promote its novel, opening up a random plotline every 3 episodes isn't very conducive to convincing people that the series doesn't suck donkey balls. Speaking of donkeys, I wonder what ass thought this ranking system was a smart idea. Now, I have no issue with Classroom of the Elite's meritocracy premise because of how much potential dramatic tension and psychological insight it can provide. What I do have a problem with is how the ranking system actually works. The entire moving up the ranks by acting like good boys and girls is whatever, but the fact that students like Horikita and some others can rank in Class D is beyond me. There's absolutely no sign given that Horikita, the main female protagonist, and some others within Class D are dumber, less athletic, or more socially inept than any other class in the school. Sure, they may be less deviant and cunning than those classes above them, but I doubt that's a scoring category for a school's ranking system, considering the place is already corrupt and would probably be shut down by the government. Further complicating this arbitrary hierarchy is allegedly, students' actions outside of classes do have effects on their ranking and salary, but A-rank students just happen to be sneaky enough to never get caught manipulating the lower classes in situations to their advantages. You can't convince me that a school which can deadass afford to move the school onto a yacht and televise a survival competition for a week doesn't have cameras and people monitoring the behaviors of its students from every crevice imaginable around the clock. Thus, Class A's ranking doesn't make any sense, and neither does anybody else's. Even if you dismiss extracurricular behavior and results, the ranking system is still unquestionably flawed if Ayanokouji, a person who receives 50 out of 100s on every single category of his entrance exam, who doesn't participate in extracurriculars despite his apparent knowledge of other subjects, and who doesn't take leadership opportunities when given to him, is accepted into this school. This ranking system is so absurdly inconsistent that it cripples its premise and the show's ability to do something interesting with its ideas of superiority complexes in the story, as the rankings are entirely artificial and seem to have just been paid off as far as the audience can see. In short, Classroom of the Elite's ranking system is like Boku no Hero getting a 3rd season. It just makes no fucking sense. So, in the end, what do we know? We know Classroom of the Elite has a great premise that leaves room for insanely intense psychological battles that it doesn't deliver on. The show's ranking system is as effective as cutting meat with a baked potato, and that if you're trying to simply advertise your light novel, maybe you should just wait till it's out in the West. Classroom of the Elite boasts a strong character dynamic between its 2 main characters alongside a strong first arc. However, its refusal to do virtually anything with the plot points and conflicts it opens up results in the show becoming too stale for its mysteries to be worth solving. TLDR, Classroom of the Elite is aight, but you'd be better off watching the other show that came out during the exact same season that ranks people off of their abilities and is the drama it sets out to be. Fuck Mother's Basement.